What was that? You're mine.
Put that check in a money market mutual fund. Then we'll reinvest the earnings into foreign currency accounts with compounding interest, and it's gone.
What?
It's gone. It's all gone.
What's all gone?
The money in your account. It didn't do too well. It's gone.
What do you mean? I have $100.
Not anymore, you don't. Poof.
I'm assuming these tunnels are where they are keeping Sleepy Joe's spare meat suits. Oh, God, it looks like that mattress came straight from one of Hunter's videos. This whole synagogue looks like some shithole country like India. I keep expecting to see Vivek pop up to sell me pharmaceuticals or cook with his feet. Wow, look at him go amazing. These guys should take some advice from those Palestinians. I hear they build great tunnels.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Outlawed Apes. A little bit of a different name. I'm going to have to get used to that for sure. Just because I'm always used to saying the same thing at the beginning of these. I am joined by a new person that some of the people in the chat will recognize because I think they came from over on his side of the internet. Some of them will not. So we're going to do some introductions here and talk a little bit about what this is going to be. This is sort of a continuation of the show that I was doing before, which was called Outlawed Thoughts, which took about a month hiatus as I moved and did a bunch of random stuff with housing, which I went over before. But basically have decided that politics is fun to cover, but I want to cover it in a much different way. I want it to be a little more fun. And so I think that's what this show is going to be more about, is covering pop culture issues and a little bit of politics in a much more fun way than we've done before on the channel. And I contacted the guy that's over here, which is Armed Ape, because I met him when I was on another stream in the sort of libertarian space and found him interesting. And he was into comic books and a little bit of the same drama spheres that I was on the internet. So it makes it easy to cover those sort of topics. And I also talked to Kareem because unlike Armed Ape here, he doesn't know anything about, say, the Eric July drama or any of that stuff. So he's sort of like a blank slate that we get to corrupt live on stream. So it's sort of an interesting experiment in internet activities. I see Shannon in the chat here. She's a regular from Outlawed Thoughts and pretty much everywhere around the libertarian space. So we are going to have a fun night. I wanted to pass things over to begin with to Armed Ape, because I'd like you to give me sort of a little bit of internet lore on you. I know you've been around for a very long time, so give us sort of maybe breakdown of how you got to this point. Would be a good way, I think, to start.
Okay, first off, Greetings. It's nice to be here, and you have met Kareem. I am now meeting for the very first time. Hello to you. You want backstory on this? Okay, good luck. Here we go. Well, the channel Armed Ape has been around since about 2008, but I have not done anything with it until about 2018. So, I had to take my time and really think about what I was going to do, and it took about a decade. And then I went out and bought an AK-47. And I thought, okay, great, the AK-47. I always never had one. I said, okay, I'll get one. And not knowing anything about it, I went to look on the internet and saw a bunch of channels for AKs, and I didn't like any of them. So I thought, okay, since this is, it's an AK, you shit post with an AK. That's what it is. It's not the glorious, beautiful AR-15 or whatever. It's AK. Garbage, beautiful, beautiful garbage. But so I was born with this. I stumble into a shop. I see this mask. I say, yes. I see the helmet. I had the helmet. I say, yes. Threw it all together. And here we are, 6 years later. And I still don't know exactly what the hell I am, but here I am.
So I watched a lot of your videos on the channel, sort of, when I found when I was introduced to you on the podcast we were on, and then I sort of went from there. And you have some great content out there. It's sort of underrated, in my opinion. It's very well edited and put together. Your stuff is well done, which is rare to see around internet these days, because it's become sort of a cesspit for AI stuff and just sort of regurgitated things. But it's nice to see sort of what I would call old school YouTube videos, which is what I think you were making for sure. I mean, it feels very early 2000s, like when I first sort of got on the platform, which is definitely cool to see.
Well, thank you. And being old myself, it kind of, one follows the other. I don't know, man. I'm not doing AI shit, that's for sure. I cannot, no AI. I will just do it the way I'm doing it. I try to get better as I go along. That's all you can do, And keep it original, keep it human. Let the machines do what the machines do. Let's try to keep the human element in the videos. That is what I'm all about. So yeah.
Absolutely. Kareem, you're muted, by the way. I'm not sure if you knew that. I just noticed it.
Yeah. I just wanted to let it get through his introduction. Man, but yeah, I agree. Like, people, I even agree, funny enough, with YouTube saying, like, hey, if you do a whole video with AI and don't even include your voice, we're going to demonetize it because it's YouTube. It's not it. And there are people who are just super lazy, like, oh, I'll put this in here, this. So people know creativity, and I feel like AI is going to...
Well, we had some AI in the beginning of this show. I use AI to do the 11 Labs to do the voice of Trump for that video that I did. But the difference is that's clearly comedy. Like, nobody actually thinks Donald Trump is saying that about Vivek Ramaswamy cooking with his feet. But it is.
To be fair, if you could cook for your feet, that'd be impressive, man. It's like, here, check this dude. There's a dude.
Funny is that video got like 30,000 views on Twitter. That Trump AI thing I did. I a couple of those I did pretty well on Twitter. I was surprised.
Yeah, no, it can definitely. I'll say that you can definitely get some good stuff out of AI, but the issue is people sometimes lack creativity.
It's just the overuse of it. Yeah. It's like, I don't care if you want to do some stuff, but once you start making it your entire identity or your entire channel, I think you've gone down the shitter. And I think I think there's going to be a lot of that, especially with the politics stuff, 2024 happening, all that, which I guess moves us into sort of topics here. So a couple things I want to cover here, and I had sort of put aside some specific topics. I went around Twitter, bookmarked some stuff, and sort of just did some light guest work to get some stuff ready. This was done pretty last minute, but I wanted to kind of go over some general stuff because I thought that would be interesting to talk about, which would be sort of the upcoming 2024 shenanigans, right? We've got presidential election. This is what everybody in the media certainly is talking about. And since we are going to cover politics some on this channel, I thought it would be good to start with sort of what do you guys think's going to happen in the 2024 election? let's make it a really general question.
Nothing good. The state's gonna. I'll tell you this. I know what's gonna happen. Larry Fink, Pepe Orsini. Look who that is, which is a religious figure. Larry Fink's the CEO of BlackRock, and the CEOs of pharmaceutical companies will still be your president. The wars will still keep going on. As far as I'm concerned, president, that big deal. I think I've taken a look at our, but if you're going to ask our side, I've weighed the options. I've looked, I've thought about it. Maybe I've talked to a few people, and I am going to support Michael Rectenwald, even though maybe I have some disagreements with Michael Rectenwald, and I will kind of support because I like her anti-war stance, not anything else. I have met Jill Stein in person and talked to her for a little bit. Funny enough, I met Daniel McAdams at the march, the Rage Against the War Machine. That I met Jill Stein, talked to them both. And as far as, if you're anti-war, I can start there. So I'll throw her like a couple
okay,
hey.
So let me rephrase this question. Kareem, what do you think is actually going to happen in 2024's presidential election? Not who do you want will win. Who's going to fucking win?
Who's going to win?
What's going to happen? That's the prediction.
They'll be cheating, but I think Trump will win, if I'm being honest. I think Trump will win if he's not indicted. If he is indicted, then I think whoever the Republican is will win. And there might be cheating, and the regime might just say, hey. So that's what those are my two guesses. The regime puts in there another puppet because they cheated, and they're still cheating, or Trump wins.
Talking more like Gavin Newsom, like they swap out Biden for another meat suit.
Yeah, I mean, probably that's what I would guess will happen in 2024. But I answered your question on all sides as well. Should I not talk about our side or just
No, you're good. No, you're good. You're good. I was just more of I want to talk about like who we thought were going to win the election and the primary and stuff. And as much as I'll support a libertarian candidate, I don't think they're going to win. So I'm just I'm not super optimistic on that route. But I guess Armed, what's your sort of take on that? Is your you think Trump's gonna win? You think there's gonna be shenanigans? You think that do you think they keep Biden, or do you think they swap him out like in May?
Okay. So as he was saying, if you have learned nothing from the last 8 years, 7 years, whatever, doesn't matter who the hell sits in the White House anymore. This government runs itself. That is a fact. There is no more question about it. So, but if you want to have the figurehead, okay, we go to the figurehead. Do I think Biden will actually make it to the election day? No, I do not. I think there will be a quote-unquote health crisis that is going to strike the Biden administration. Kamala Harris is not going to be the one they put in. Oh God, no, they're not that fucking crazy. Okay, that's not happening. So I think, and it kills me to say this, but I think if they have to, they're gonna. I mean, look who's setting himself up for it. It's obviously Newsom. Okay, obviously setting himself up to slide right into that position. They're Democrats. The rules out the window. Doesn't matter. If they got to put him in, no matter what happens in the primaries, he's going in. As we saw from the last election, it's not who votes, it's who counts, okay? So, are they going to be as brazen this time with that? I don't know. That will be a good question. I can tell you this. They're going to try everything they can to get Trump indicted before the election, okay? But I don't think that will matter. It won't matter. People are still going to vote for him. They're already trying to pull him off ballots, and that is getting yeeted out the door by the Supreme Court. So that shit ain't gonna work. He's gonna be voted in. If they pull him, people are gonna write him in. Okay, and if they pull that same bullshit this time, It's not going to be good. Okay, January
Yeah.
6th is going to look like a tea party. Okay, and not the one in Boston. I'm talking like with out in the garden sipping tea. People are going to be like, okay, now we know. Now we know exactly what's going
Actually,
on.
you're
Go
making
ahead.
me you're making me want that. Well, no, that'd be terrible if that happened, because I believe in our republic and it does stuff and it's a nice mafia
Yeah,
organization. Well,
yeah.
with
I'd like to
Well,
run
80-year-old
over.
senators who resign, who are turtles, who do a white powdery substance that they enjoy.
yeah.
That's impressive. He did that much substance, but here, one interesting thing to say is, I see some good things happening. I was just on, well, I'm on Twitter, I guess now. Texas is talking about seceding. We have this
Oh,
nice young man, Leighton, who's inspired by Joe Vogler, who has a nice movement that could help Alaska get away from this dumpster fire called the Union. And the Hawaii got wrecked. You just need to rile them up. Then you just need to rile the Neo-Confederates up, and the Union's gone. We can do it's balkanized. Here's what I think. Regardless what happens in 2024, we should continue to push for balkanization until you get government down to the local, village, municipal level. That is my goal. That's something I strongly believe in. After looking at everything, after looking at how people deal with issues, there's just too much division. And I think you either make, and I don't even think it would be local government the way it's looked at today. I think we can do something. We can do something better. Now, if somebody doesn't want, to live in maybe like this stereotypical local government, we can have the discussion of like, all right, let's try agorism. But I've been looking at a lot of Samuel Conkin's work, and I think he was right organizationally, as opposed to Rothbard, that you should keep stuff in the physical domain local. If you want to do internet stuff internationally, fine, but let's keep our supply chain local.
Yeah.
I
I don't know, because you're gonna have to like tear down the whole old supply chain, because I mean, look at it. We are not a local supply chain kind of country anymore. It's just not,
and I think that's the problem,
So
because
I will talk about this. I put this up on Twitter a few days ago. This shows the percentage of residents participating in the survey February 2nd through 5th who favor their state succeeding from the U.S., with Alaska topping states with at least 100 respondents at 36%. So not too many responses to this survey. It was a small-scale survey. The other states got a lot more replies than Alaska. But I just find it interesting in general, sort of the layout of percentages here, of what you see. Because Alaska, by the numbers, is even beating a state like Texas at 31%. California is on the verge of being at the same level as Texas with 29%. What I find funny about this is you saw that trailer for that movie Civil War thing that was coming out, right? And
Yeah.
everybody was critiquing that trailer, talking about how they were bringing up that California was the state that was succeeding, and that was a big surprise to them. I have family that comes from that area, and if you're outside of the Los Angeles area in California, you find a lot more people on the right in that state than you would think, especially because there's so much money there. A lot of those, you get some money, you get in your 50s, you start tilting towards the right a bit typically. And so that's what you'll find. You go up in the wine country in California, in those areas, is a lot of right wingers are sitting up there talking about how they'd like to just gotta overthrow the Los Angeles class. And so I think
that's horrible.
what is being seen in that 29% there that you're looking at. With Alaska, yeah, I mean, Kareem brought up the fact that I was covering Joe Vogler, who's a figure over here in Alaska. He created a thing in the 70s called the Alaskan Independence Party. And that was the first major, the first real major political movement here in the state pushing for sort of secession by the vote. And his life is pretty much chronicled. There isn't really any kind of biographies or real documentaries or anything out there. He was murdered in 1993. And so if you're interested in that, I have a video. It's the only documentary on the subject on the internet. It's on this channel. It's called The Life and Assassination of Joe Vogler. It goes over his whole life. Very interesting man. One of my heroes. I'm in ownership now of 2 previously lost photographs of him. These are both photos that were media archivist photos that were taken by the media when he was running for office that were never used. And I was able to track them down and buy them from a photograph archivist. They even have the original writing on the back from the people who did the photo to publish it. It's kind of neat. But yeah, so I think secession stuff here is still fairly strong, especially in the rural areas. And I think you're going to find that pretty much everywhere you go in the U.S. I do think there's a lot of issues with secession still, and the idea of balkanization even. I think Armed Ape points some of that stuff out, which is sort of trade routes and how that whole thing will flesh out over time. I do think that some of that can be answered sort of by the already sort of existing markets. Like I always point out to people that certain states just do things better already than other states. You know, the argument I'd make is like Texas was always known for oil and gold, right? Arizona was known, Nevada was known for oil and gold. It was sort of a similar thing. Utah was very similar in that respect. Oregon, Alaska, most certainly, right, was known for oil and gold. So those states are really production states, right? When you think of Chicago, when you think of New York, when you think of those things, you think of metropolitan cities and you think of factories, production, right? Those are what those areas did. Philadelphia was the production hub of a lot of areas for a long time. These are areas that have a rich history of that. Steelworks in Pennsylvania and things like that. Most of the knives were produced in Pennsylvania and things and stuff throughout history. So that's something I always point out to people is like, I think those trade routes will just naturally come forth because they already existed. I mean, for instance, like Alaska, if it was allowed to produce and collect its own resources, and I've always said this, the reason we are not allowed to do that, the reason we have to remain sort of shackled to the federal system, and the reason why the feds own 60% of our land is because if we were allowed to produce oil, if we were allowed to produce gold again or natural resources, well then who's to stop us from selling to our neighbors, which would be Canada, Russia, China, these other countries, as well as our fellow Americans, I might add, because financially that's what would make sense. We're 52 miles at the closest point to Russia, right? So why wouldn't we just put a pipeline over there and send some of our oil that way to get some money? And so the U.S. likes wars. So it can't let that happen. Say again?
Okay, but here's I was just joking.
Oh, sorry. I just missed it. It's my fault.
I said, aren't you sad about Navalny when it said the thing?
I don't think Putin killed that guy.
I probably
that might
think
be a hot take, but I think the U.S. is
but here's
more
the
likely
thing.
to have done that.
I will fix your supply chain problems. Here's what we do. We go on discord.com and you get like some dude like, hey, can you voluntarily coordinate this? I'll give you some, free beer. He's like, sure. Good. Thank you, sir.
I'm not
free beer.
Conversation. I got to get stoned.
Yeah. I'll help you align your chakras if it's Leighton's case, because he needs to do that. And I'll show him how to meditate.
This is what's going to make this show great, by the way, is the insanity that Kareem brings to the table mixed with the insanity that Armed Ape brings to the table. And then I just get to sit back and be sort of the autistic brain in the room.
I'm halfway joking, but hear me out. Okay. I know this sounds insane, but I've seen whole agencies and I'm working with people running whole agencies on Discord. These things are like 6-7 figure businesses. So you can like, but I have a lot of faith in Telegram, Discord things to say, hey, do need butter. All right, here, I do be given butter. That can be how your supply chain works. Am I an economist? No. I would think Robert Murphy would think I'm nuts hearing this. That's fine. I don't claim to be an economist, though. But I think with the power of the internet, we can fix a lot of local issues, and we don't need government anymore. We never really did, in my opinion. But since we have the advent of the internet, since we have the advent of decentralized communication, that can solve a lot of local problems. Also, we can solve problems through using sound money, exchange economies, things like that, barter. But to me, the one thing everybody agrees on that I have noticed, pick somebody out of a hat: liberal, conservative, progressive, Democrat, Republican, libertarian, ANCAP, minarchist, dude who independent, guy who likes French fries. Back in the day, early 2000s, 90s, I was like, secession. They're like, no. They're like, oh, yeah, it's so crazy. I read in 2020 that John Podesta's a neoliberal authoritarian left said if Trump wins, the East Coast should secede. And I'm like, okay, I agree. Then Marjorie Taylor Greene was put in secession. I agree. Now Texas is talking about it. Now Dave Smith's talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. I think if libertarians don't take advantage of, states seceding, because a president's, in my opinion, not going to do anything. They're going to be just a figurehead, and the agenda is already planned out. So we might as well do the one thing that we can do that's nonviolent, which is state secession and then local secession, and see how that looks. And I bet you it won't be perfect. I get there's coordination problems, but I have faith in the free market and people working together to figure that out. And also, Leighton does not like this, but I also have faith in my friends in communes that can do some cool things. Even if they're short.
You motherfucker, you always frame this wrong. No. I don't have any problem with communes, you hippie fucks. I've got a problem with communists. All right?
There's a slight difference.
You could be on a commune. I'm sure my grandmother, she was a hippie. She spent some time on communes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference between that and actual communists.
All right, my bad.
Really, if you want to, like, the brass tacks of it, like, if you go back in history, looping it back into some historical stuff, back in the day in Alaska, like the native tribes here that existed before the settlers came for the gold rushes and the oil and all that horse shit. You go back before even the Russians got here. And the native communities did live a very communal system where certain tribes were better at certain things. Maybe they were better at hunting, or they were better at making a certain type of fur, or they were better at processing something, or fishing because they had control of coastal areas. And so these groups would pretty much trade back and forth, or in many times just give the people what they needed. It was a very communal system. Now they still had a market, which a lot of people will try to remove. So it wasn't communist or wasn't Marxist by any means, or socialist, but it was a communal market. Like, they had a much more shared market than you would see in a pure capitalist environment. I still think you could do something like that. I think you could do a straight commune. I just don't think communism is something that I could ever support or get behind, because I think it'll ultimately lead to the eradication of humans and the starvation of thousands.
Correct. Yeah, Marxism is one of the most deadly and destructive philosophies. What I'm essentially talking about is what you're describing, or in some cases, I've been looking at Re-Education's content, which I think he does some good stuff. And I was interacting with him on Twitter, and his idea is that you do mutual aid, which is just, hey, I can supply you with that stuff you're smoking. You supply me with this, you help me. And then by doing that, you remove the barrier. So somebody needs something fixed, then you need help.
I mean, I think the important question is, could the states on their own survive if they didn't have access to outside states? I think the answer to that question is no. I think there are many states that couldn't, right? I think there's a lot of states in the middle of America that have unfortunately been neglected by their own governments in those states and by the federal government, such to a point that if there was a dissolution of the federal government, those states were left on their own, I think they would slowly be absorbed by the states that surround them. And I think that isn't necessarily a bad thing. I know some people will take offense to that, but the reality is, right, if your state can't survive on its own, right, and the populace still wants to be protected and be able to thrive, either they're going to need to figure out a way to make it survive on their own, or they're going to be absorbed by people who do have the ability to do it, or they're going to basically move. I'll give the argument Sam Kinison gave to the African children on the commercials. Fucking move, right? This is my favorite bit Sam Kinison ever gave. I love that guy. His comedy's great. One of his bits is talking about those fucking the commercials you see where they go, for 50 cents a day, you can feed little Timmy over in Africa, right? And he goes, Africa's a fucking desert. Right? You move to a place where there's no food. The answer here is to fucking move, right? And he's doing it the classic Kinison sort of way. But he's right? As funny as the stand-up bit is, he's correct, right? If the land that you're on is inhospitable and you can't survive there, you fucking move, right? Or you make it survivable. This is the problem we have with immigration. Like, I don't like illegal immigration, but I believe in some form of legal immigration. I think there has to be a way for really good people in other countries that want to make the American dream a reality to be able to do so.
Can I bring something up on that? All right. I'll divert from, well, hey, maybe we can call the green anarchists to make the solar punk dudes to make some things. But how about the interesting thing with immigration is, I saw the debate I saw Dave Smith said we should utilize the U.S. military for that, and I saw Jack Lloyd push back, and I thought about it, and I said, I agree. And I said, the problem with immigration is, I think people are looking at it from the fact, well, should we have a border? Should we put troops here? I think the liberty answer is to have government stop it, incentivizing it, because people are coming literally saying, I will get this, this, and this. I think it's the equivalent if you put on your house free beer, a huge sign. Yes, people will try and break in your house. People try and knock on your door at ridiculous hours in the morning because people are weird and they want it's free. But people are like, well, should I get an electric fence? Should I get a gun? I'm like, take the free beer sign down first. Stop saying you're incentivizing it. Then if you don't incentivize immigration and you don't have foreign policy that displaces people, then I honestly think a lot of these problems would solve themselves and you don't have to spend any money. And the problem with a lot of people's solutions are they're using the state to do it. The wall is violating personal property rights through eminent domain. And I'm not a constitutionalist. I'm not a fan of eminent domain. That's how I get constitutionalists. They're like, I love the Constitution. I plaster it everywhere, I'm like, okay, did you read it? Yeah, I agree with everything in it. Can I tear down someone's house for a shopping mall? Yeah, eminent domain can be used. Can I tear down your house for a shopping mall? Oh no. Come on. Like, if you're going to agree with all of it, let's play ball. So to me, I'm kind of curious, did you see that, Leighton, on Twitter? That little
yeah, I saw the whole bitch between Jack Lloyd and Dave.
And obviously I'm biased. I like Jack. I talk to Jack a lot. Like,
I think Jack is wrong. Because
I think Jack's right.
I think ultimately, if under every metric I have looked at the border and what is happening, and there are a lot of people who think this is sort of a fervor and a buzzword, but it's not. I mean, it meets to me the criteria of an invasion. You have thousands and thousands and thousands of people pouring into a country that are inherently changing demographics within that country, that are changing the pay rate within that country, that are changing the ability for the people who are inherently native to that country to survive. And I think that is inherently I mean, regardless of whether you are a libertarian or not, I mean, I can make a libertarian argument for this as well, but you know, I am anti-war, right? Completely.
Yes.
But at what point does Mexico or a Middle Eastern country or an Asian country flooding our country with people, altering the demographics and altering the voting populace, altering our democracy that they want to protect, and all these things, at what point does that become military in nature? At what point does that become a conflict more than a political issue? And that's something I don't think anybody on the left or right is actually answering. They're pussyfooting around.
I'll answer it. That's not that difficult of an answer. First of all, you have to consider one thing.
Okay.
Where did he go? Okay.
You there.
Leighton, you're muted. All right. I'll answer it. That's not actually super, super difficult, is this. Whether you think it's invasion or whether you think it isn't, yes, demographics are being changed. A lot of things are happening that are not good. I think everybody acknowledges that. The question is, and the discussion, the point of contention was not, are there problems with what's going on? It's the problem of how do you fix it? What do you do?
Okay. Well, okay. Let me. I'm going to jump in here because I want to make sure we get this right. Because I also want Armed Ape to comment on this after we're done having this little spat, and then we have some good interaction there. But what if say what you just said is correct, right? And this is the argument I'm going to make. Is the right answer in the moment to an invasion, right, under the Constitution and under the laws that are set forth that we're supposedly following, to respond with that by protecting U.S. citizens and the people who are under that Constitution and those documents? Meaning, as a libertarian, being anti-war, I can still say if Mexico lobbed a missile at some house in Texas, I'm okay with somebody going over and killing whoever the fuck did that, because I'm anti-war, but I'm also logical. And if you kill an American and you do it without any kind of reasoning, right? You're not somebody where we're overkilling you. You're just doing this because you can, right? So my point is, I'm a libertarian, but I'm still okay with the military protecting people against that, right? The same way I would be a militia doing it. So let's move into a different mindset there then. Let's say it's not the U.S. federal government military. Let's say it's a private militia that exists in Texas and Arizona that decides that it's going to set up on the border and protect it and not allow anybody to cross, right? So same argument. They make the argument that they are legally under an invasion, that this is a military conflict now, that they are progressing this into another space. What is the argument against it? Is it not an invasion? Is it not? Is that 2 steps too far? Or are they on board? Or is that the right response to this? That's the question I think I'm sort of proposing that I don't think really was answered on either side by Dave or by Jack. I think Dave answered it more so than Jack. Jack is obviously against what I'm saying, but I think Jack is wrong. Okay.
Hey, here's what I'm saying. I would say this, and I'll answer it by saying, yeah, whether you consider an invasion, whatever you consider it, I think the point of discussion was how do you take a look at this situation and come up with a solution that doesn't involve expanding the government. And the best way to do it, like I said, I tried to think, why are these people coming over? Well, 2 reasons that I can see. They take back to Smedley Butler is A, you're destabilizing where they're at so that there's rampant crime and drug lords and all these things that are dangerous. It's dangerous. And they're not particularly from Mexico. I think it's like the Golden Triangle, Honduras, all these places.
Oh, that's my point.
So
my point is they're mostly not from Mexico, but Mexico's facilitating it.
Yeah, Mexico's facilitating. But my answer is, because I thought about I think about human psychology a lot when people are making decisions and things based on incentives. maybe not so much economics, but why is person X saying and doing this? Because usually you look at their actions and you look what's behind it, and there is something there. I personally think if you get rid of incentives, stop meddling in other countries, not that nobody would do it, school choice, and even, getting rid of some, restrictive things in the market, a lot of these problems will.
So that's the argument that Jack also made.
The
response that I have to that, and the question I have for you, do you think that if the United States federal government ceased to exist tomorrow, and the markets and all the terrorism and all the stuff you're talking about that we are involved in, which I agree we are involved in and perpetrating, but if all that stuff was gone tomorrow, do you think that people in Mexico, people in Lebanon, people in Iraq, Afghanistan, Africa, that they would suddenly not want to come to the United States anymore? That they wouldn't migrate here anymore? Because I don't think that's the case.
I think, okay, if I tell you, like, hey, Leighton, come. I think
I'm going to let Arm Dave. I want to let Arm Dave jump in here and sort of.
Yes, please. I have been pretty fucking quiet here, and now it's time to not be quiet. Okay, so let's not be quiet anymore. We got a lot to discuss, man. You'll put a lot on the plate here. Okay, so I take it you two guys are libertarians.
I am more on the right than he is.
Okay, well, you're still kind of like in that libertarian kind of way.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good. I have libertarian tendencies too, of course. I mean, and I am probably further to the right than you. Okay, so wait, this way. There you are. Okay, first thing, when you talk about the countries that are sending their people, and like, whoa, should we like invade those? Should we attack those countries for sending their people? You're attacking the wrong fucking government for sending people. You're not attacking. No,
yeah, I know. I'm not. My argument is more so that should the military be involved with protecting the borders in the United States?
Of course it should,
and not attacking people. I'm not for
right,
that.
But you have these countries like Venezuela and China and shit. They're fucking sending people. They're sending them. And they're sending them because the fucking government that is calling for this is the one that's in Washington, D.C. It is our government, okay? If you want to fucking launch on a government, there's your fucking target, D.C. Those are the ones doing it. If you try to put a militia, a private militia on the border because we are being invaded, they're not going to, no. You saw, they tried to get the fucking Texas National Guard thrown off the border, the federal government, because they want it. If you got rid of the federal government tomorrow, no country is sending their people. You know why? Because this country is now going deep into the shithole because it's over. A federal government collapse. Do you realize how many millions of people will die if the federal government collapses? Do you understand the death toll in the millions? Probably the tens of millions. Not only from what will happen in this country with the complete collapse of the money gone, the fucking infrastructure, the delivery, all that shit gone. Each state will become its own sovereign nation, and that has to get sorted out. Some states will be like, we want to, oh man, all the old grudges will come to life. The new war will begin, okay? You don't want, if you talk about, when you guys talk about seceding, we're going to secede and we're going to secede. The last time that fucking happened, we had a civil war. The federal government is not going to allow anybody to secede. They own too much in those states that want to boogie out the door. Not going to happen. Get that thought out of your head. There will be no secession unless you want a civil war. That is a fact. That's just the way it's going to be. If we're ready for civil war, let's fucking kick it off. The last civil war, 3% of the population died, okay? And that was in a war where there wasn't really attacks on civilian targets much. It was organized. It was soldiers banging against soldiers. There was guerrilla shit, but not crazy. You kick a civil war off in this country, I think you factor that by 5 minimum. 15% population dead. Maybe more. Maybe 30% dead. No country, nobody in their right mind will be like, I'm going to America because it's a total shit show right now. Even the people watch, all the ones that came here, if that shit kicked off, they're fucking going right back out the border, man. Because it's a free-for-all at that point. We cannot have a free-for-all. I know the government sucks. I get it. The government is a piece of shit. It is run by the bureaucracy. I get it. Our only chance to do anything, to get anything right, is that, to sort that out, not to take it out on each other in the states. You got to sort Washington, D.C. out. You got to take the bureaucracy on. That's who's running the country. That's who's fucking it up. You got to hit the big money interests, BlackRock, fucking Berkshire Hathaway, all the ones that are funding all the DEI bullshit and buying up all the houses, driving up the market because they don't want you to own, they want you to rent. Those companies, down. You got to take them down. I'm not saying become communist. I fucking hate communists. And you're right. Communism leads to nothing but fucking labor camps and fucking gulags and millions of deaths. We do not want that. No matter what the pink-haired fucking weirdos say, we're not going communist. I'll put them in the fucking ground before I see a fucking start, before I see this right here. No, ain't gonna happen. So we gotta fix the government. That's the problem. All this other shit will sort itself out. Why do I think they're flooding the country with 7 million illegals? You want to go down that rabbit hole? We'll go. How have excess deaths been lately? You notice the trend of excess deaths hasn't dropped. It's still going on.
Oh,
yeah, they're killing. They are. This millions have died. Okay, all over the world. Not so much from a, but more from a. That's not an accident. Not an accident. And the reason that they're not even talking about it, I mean, look, 2 years ago, I had a video yanked because of fucking talking about the white blood clots that the embalmers were finding in people. Fucking YouTube was like, pull that video or lose your channel. I had to pull it. Now it's being talked about openly on fucking YouTube. Not being talked about on the news. They're not talking about that shit on the news, and that's for a reason. 2 reasons. One, the pharmaceutical companies, if we fucking Nuremberg these guys, there would be no more pharmaceutical companies because they would be completely wrecked. We can't do that. And we also can't talk about it because if we go into the vaccine injury fucking the VAERS system, billions of dollars is going to go right out the door to people who have either died or are permanently injured from this shit over a manufactured vaccine. None of this was an accident. They're taking out the people that will resist what they're doing, and they're bringing in the people that will go along with it. So I don't want a civil war. I don't want any of that shit. We can't do that. But the clock is ticking on the amount of time we have left to actually do something. We ain't doing shit. So that's my opinion. That's where I'm at.
So I agree with a lot of what you said in regards to like people not wanting to come if the government was under control. Like if the government was operating properly, then people wouldn't want to show up just because the system wouldn't invite it. I do agree with that. I do agree with the Civil War thing as far as the percentages goes. I see Win Model 88 here in the chat said about 25%. I think I think that's about a good estimate. I think a lot of people misunderstand the Civil War thing because they don't understand the geography of it and how like that plays a gigantic role into the way that thing would play out. I also don't think people understand how different states would bunch up together against other states. Again, you talk about old grudges, but I think that's something people forget about, which is that very much would play a giant role in things. Alaska is fairly removed from it. I think there's a better case for places like Alaska and Hawaii as far as the whole secession thing goes because of geography for the exact same reasons, because I think there can be very similar places to what DC is and stuff. They can still have U.S. benefits, but still be considered a territory sort of situation. Right. I think there's other places that could do that too, but they would have to basically get the permission of everybody else around them. They're not going to be able to do it on their own, which is, I think, something, again, people just ignore. I don't think secession is ever going to happen the way that people think it is. I don't think it's going to look like a bunch of states breaking up. I do think it could look like what we're seeing in like places like Oregon and California and those areas where they're saying, hey, we want to just kind of absorb this place. We want to kind of take up this place because they're not getting represented. I think that'll continue to happen. And I think in 100 years, the states are just going to look a lot different in general if they continue on this way, because you're going to have I wouldn't be surprised even if you see maybe even a shrinking in the number of states in total. Or so instead of seeing, states broadening out and separating, you're going to see the opposite. You're going to see like California and Oregon just become the same thing, or Seattle and these places just sort of merge into two. I think you could see that happening over time just because of the politics of things. But yeah, I don't know, Kareem, what's your take? Give your 2 cents.
All right, so let me respond to everything Ape said. So first of all, one thing I did not call for any type of conflict or even suggest that it would be a good idea. Actually, I think secession is a good way to prevent unnecessary conflict from occurring. That's one thing. Empires have a shelf life, roughly of about 250 years. I've studied empires. I often comment that Age of Empires should just be a game on my laptop because I've never seen empires in any circumstance, whether it be Roman, the Byzantines, even the Mongols, drastically benefit anybody but the top percentage. It's, concentrated benefits, dispersed costs. It definitely doesn't benefit guys like us. So that being said, I do think the United States federal government has a limited shelf life. So unfortunately, those people who cannot live without it, it's kind of like saying, well, I can't live without, certain, you have maybe an addict. I can't live without a certain thing. Unfortunately, I think we can come up with solutions if we decentralize fast enough. But if you have to live on the federal government, I don't know what to tell you at this point. The currency already is exponentially becoming less and less effective. And there's no way, unless because it's an inflationary currency, not a deflationary currency, but you can't start destroying Federal Reserve notes or the Secret Service. Actually, like if you made that real public, the Secret Service, a lot of people don't know this. They say, oh, just to help the president. It's actually to defend the currency as well. So you can't make it, if you make it deflationary, go to jail. So you got to rule that out. So the dollar eventually, that's why I said like that, people like, what is, why was I criticizing Javier Milei really, really hard? And it was because like, dude, you're adopting the dollar in this stage of the game is not to me, even though the peso is bad, this currency is not much better. So that's one thing to consider. I think the best thing is my position is state secession, come up with competing currencies backed by, it doesn't have to be gold, but backed by something that has intrinsic value. And I don't know what that is in your state or your local town, but we can have state currencies and municipal currencies and back them up by something. That to me will alleviate a lot of the chaos. And also, I think depending on the federal government's not good, because the federal government's not really exists to leech off of people. It's a mafia organization. It doesn't exist to serve anybody or help anybody. As far as the illegal immigration, I do agree with you that, yeah, if there's no federal government, and we're not interfering in other countries, and we're not incentivizing the mass movement of people, because people are coming here to get stuff. People are like, and if you don't believe that to me, I've done marketing. Try this on Instagram. Put up like, I have a course and it costs I don't know, $20. Not that many people. Oh, here's my free ebook on how to, whatever it is, get leads, align your chakras, smoke weed, thousands of downloads. Oh, for free. Now, I'm not against having free stuff in a mutual aid society, and I can expand upon, yes, Marxism leads to camps, death, mass thing, but the type of society that I was talking about, with Leighton, the communal thing, I think small towns, communal things, paired with mutual aid is a good idea. Also, if you really think about it, one last comment on the currency is, if you listen to Alan Watts, he's not an economist, but he was like a spiritual philosopher. One thing about the Great Depression. Oh, sorry.
I know Alan Watts' stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So he made a really good point when, I'm not an economist, but he made a really good point. He said the Great Depression, there was a problem with the money. But he said there was no less natural resources. There's no less, things to build with. You lost a signal. You lost the unit of measurement. It's like, build a house. I can't. Why? Not enough inches. Well, inches is an abstract measurement facility. So I'm even willing to say in small organizations and stuff, you could utilize mutual aid even without money in some instances to get stuff done. I'm not an expert on that. Re-education talks about that, but that's my answer to that in a nutshell is the federal government will not last, in my opinion, not only forever, it has a very, very limited shelf life. And what's evident is Leighton asked, what do you think will happen in the presidential election? Right now, as it stands, whether they remove Biden or not, the last two presidents are geriatric. You could not get them a job at Aldi's because they say, well, sir, you probably shouldn't be, bagging groceries at all. Maybe I'm being facetious. Maybe they could. But if you want someone in a free market, you want someone who's able to meet minimum qualifications. So if that is the case, the federal government is showing to me it's not useful because the actual figurehead, the actual quote unquote CEO or the executive branch is someone who's geriatric. So to me, it tells me that the federal government actually is useless and it doesn't produce anything. Legislation is not really a product. You wouldn't be like, man, you know what I need today? I need some legislation. Geez, I'm just running out of legislation in my fridge or legislation to put on, when I'm cold. Legislation's not a product. It's useless. Even the Supreme Court, in my opinion, is useless. So is Congress. I'm not even going to debate that. So if all these branches are useless and all their either departments could be privatized or you could get rid of them, then I suggest we move to that measure. Unfortunately, if some people cannot live without the federal government, it tells me that that's not a fault of libertarians. That's a fault the federal government made them dependent on it, just like a mafia organization would say, like, oh, if you get rid of the Don, I'll get overrun. Well, I'm sorry, but the Don is not a good person. At this point in time, it's not the fault of libertarians if something bad happens to someone, if the federal government goes. It's the fact that these mafia bosses, that's all they are, mafia bosses with a flag, made them dependent on it. The same way they are making immigrants dependent on what they're doing to pull them in. And they also use the medical procedure. The establishment used the medical procedure that they wanted you to take. They took your fake Federal Reserve notes through taxes, used it in their medical arm, which people can say FI is, the company that one guy that James O'Keefe worked for, not worked for, but the one in the pizzeria shop that he exposed, that's a medical arm of the United States federal government, because they literally just it's actually a quite clever diversion. You put a corporate logo and say, no, it's not us. It's this corporation. It's Halliburton. Oh, but who's giving them all the subsidies? So I'll even counter with one last thing to stack this argument and say they've already, if we take VAERS as accurate, which VAERS is underreported by about 95%. I'm not a doctor, but I know that. You know how I know? I have a degree in IT. I'm on my computer way too much, looking at reviewing crypto and looking at spirituality that I debate with Leighton, and he thinks I'm insane, which I am, and looking at Neville Goddard videos. But I could not figure out VAERS. I'm like, this is too technically complex. How's a doctor going to figure this out who's not? So my answer to you is this. They've already done it. They've already, through their wars, through their medical mishaps, and through their just nefarious whatever they're doing, and through their negligence, which you can combine too. It's either evil or stupidity, have already led millions of people to their untimely demise. So I would not necessarily feel guilty by saying this entity that's already done this bad thing, more bad stuff could happen through that. And as far as the border, I'm just looking at this human psychology. The way you stop the invasion, the way you stop people, if you think of it as a domestic thing, is if you have free beer on your house, pull down the sign. Stop saying, I would just tell people, as the president, as whatever, I'm not deploying the military, but we're giving no incentives, no more free college, no more free anything, no more free stuff. If you want to come over and figure it out, fine. And also, there's no subsidies and no nothing. And we're going to deregulate market, allow the market to work, allow school choice, and not get involved in your countries. Because think of it, even if you have an average life in Honduras, would you rather stay? I'm looking at this praxeologically. Would you rather stay in Honduras, or maybe it's not that great, but you still have a decent life, or risk it through a desert to maybe die? I think you'd stay in Honduras from psychology. That's not everybody, but that hopefully this reinforces Jack's argument. Sorry.
I'm gonna let Armed Ape sort of reply, and then we'll close things out here. This show definitely went off the rails for the first episode, but I sort of expected that, which is why I made the first episode very loose. I'll get everything organized for this next one, and I'll have some more topics and stuff set up and more like pre-work done, so it'll be a little smoother. Maybe less bickering chaos, because I hate that.
Nah, no bickering. We're not bickering. It's discussion. It's discussion.
I don't mean to make it sound that way. I just mean we'll have some, like we'll line up arguments, because I like this. I want to do this.
Okay.
Debating back and forth thing, but I want to do it sort of pre-done. We'll have like some actual topics and stuff we'll put in chats and stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Just remember one thing. Remember one thing. One of the guys doing the debating is in a fucking mask, sunglasses, and a helmet with a terrible accent. Let's not get too serious, okay? Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
man.
I'm trying, okay? I'm trying. I just, I'm trying. I just throw these things out there. There has to be a counterpoint, because somewhere in the middle, we got to find the answer. Because
I think you're right.
This is certain. The path we're on now, no bueno, okay? It's not good. So, yeah, we both are looking at the same problem. We both have different ideas of how things will do. Somewhere in the middle, we got to find a way to get out of this, because like he says, yeah, all empires collapse. That's a fact. I think the Romans might have maybe the Ming Dynasty. I don't know. 1,000 years tops, and even that was 1,000 years. It changed multiple times in those 1,000 years. So, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, yeah, and with our national debt, we're probably way closer to collapse than we would want to be. So yeah, the things got to get sorted out at some point, and people need to have these talks, because it ain't going to fix itself.
Yeah, I see a lot of people will wait till things get really, really, really okay. The reason people, whether you like it or not, tried Malay is because okay, we're starving. But do you really want to get to that? I'm telling people not to freak out. Obviously, freaking out is not good, because then you can't make good decisions on a rational basis. But here's the question: is do you have the discussion now and come up with a solution, implement it, or do you wait till things are ground zero? And if you do that, that's a bad idea.
Do you wait for the 120% inflation?
Yeah, I mean, hey, watermelons are $3,000. I'm like, yeah, Ron Paul said it. They're like, oh, I agree. Oh, yeah, can I get the LPMC? My whole check I spent it on bread. If I work for the next 10 years, I can get $50.
I got 3 bagels and I worked for a week and a half.
Woo! Yeah, look at the price side.
It'll be Zimbabwe.
Fucking Bitcoin will be worth about $500 million. So we'll have that going for us.
Yeah, but here's the problem. There's an issue with that. I have Bitcoin. I like Bitcoin. I have a crypto channel with over 100,000 subs.
Holy shit! I need to sub to your channel. No, I have a. I have a wooden play button. Okay, we're slightly different.
Oh, nice. Oh, okay. So here's the issue, though. As you know, the problem is, unless you're you could go to El Salvador and that would solve the problem, but you have to turn crypto into fiat generally to make purchases. So even if you have $500 million, the inflation is going to be, you'll be able to afford more stuff, but the inflation is going to be bad. That they'll just be like, oh, print more. Yeah. I think Ukraine will win. It's been 30. Zelensky's 80, but I think they're doing some stuff. They're throwing paper airplanes. I think that'll take out a tank eventually. They're throwing ketchup bottles that AI generated. Drone whatever the heck it is. I think it could. I think we got to help Taiwan. I'm like, shut up. So that's my thing is, if you want to improve your living standard, disrupt the war machine, disrupt big pharma, disrupt these special interest groups, I think peaceful secession is the best thing. If I can, I'll join Michael Rechtenwald on the campaign trail if we're going to talk about what's in 2024. If I can work remotely, and I will try and boost that effort. Hey, the Native Hawaiians can get stuff back. The Vogler can be reignited. And you know what? I can, since we're going to do this, I identify, like I told someone when I posted that, I think we're getting the band back together when they told all the states that support Texas. I said I identify as Jefferson Davis. And I like that. and I'll even give you a strong argument, a libertarian argument that people on the left don't like. If you look at the actual history of the Civil War, they say it was a rebellion. That's a lie. Those states, whether you agree with slavery or not, and it's not like the North was, exactly super, pro.
Right. Yeah, no, their
freedom.
hands weren't clean. No.
So my thing is this. The South voted to leave. Lincoln slaughtered a bunch of people. He won. He changed the history books to say, oh, I'm just a progressive Bernie Sanders with a top hat. No, he was a psychopath. And so was Grant. And so was, the rest of them. So in my opinion, how I'm looking at it is that the union's already illegally held. It already ended, when the South voted to leave in the 1800s.
Well, that was the thing. There was they said there's nothing like legally holding them into the union. They said they would, the state said, if they knew that when they voted to form a union that they couldn't vote to get out of the union, they would have never done it. Okay, it just was kind of imposed on them. So yeah, I agree with that.
Kareem, Win Model in the chat asked, is Doge dead and buried for good or no?
Okay, so I'll answer this how I answer on my channel. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own research, due diligence, and don't invest in anything you're not willing to lose. I don't think Doge is dead because it's on the Ethereum blockchain and because there are people who are using it and Shiba Inu for various transactions. Now, do I think it'll have any massive spikes or dips? No. But I think Shiba and Doge are solid ones because Doge literally started the meme coin trend. And then after that came Pepe. Now I'm seeing Grok. Now I'm seeing everybody take everything that they think is a good fictional character and do that. Now, will they all succeed? No. I think Doge is good in meme coin. And before someone says, well, it's a meme coin, subjective value.
Yeah. Okay. I actually agree with that take too.
Real quick, listen, plug your channel. Jesus Christ. What is your channel? Want to go subscribe to it.
So I have Crypto Dex World. I'm going to do 5 videos for that after we get off. And then 1 Fiverr video because there's something wrong with me. And then I have the Essential Libertarians. I need to build that up. I think what I'm going to do is, have the Essential Libertarians for my live stuff. And then working on a channel, coming up with an idea. I was talking to Michael Heiss, the creator of the Mises Caucus, and said, I'm very disappointed that Stefan Molyneux kind of did really good with philosophy and then dropped off. He kind of helped me as a young ANCAP figure stuff out. So I think that's important.
Yeah,
and then
dream.
maybe I'll do some upcoming news on Rumble so I don't get in trouble.
I like that. All right. And then you're over at Armed Ape. I'm going to put all the channels in the description of this when I end the stream here. I will pull things down and be adding all that stuff here later, changing around the thumbnail and the title and all that to fit what we talked about. I think we're good there for episode 1. I think that's kind of where we'll stop it off. I've got a meeting in like 25 minutes with the LP, so that's why this episode is going to be a little shorter than usual, because I have to go do if I wasn't a board member I could sit it out, but I'm a board member. I have to be there.
Well, don't be a board. You're a board member, but have fun. Don't be a board member.
Right.
Arm Dave, how do I know you're not Mike Dunn? You're like, I got my Hawaiian shirt on.
He's Stefan Molyneux. I don't know what you're talking about.
I swear to God, I'm not in fucking. I wish I was in Hawaii.
No, I'm saying Mike Dunn's in Virginia. He's just gonna get off like Boog, Big Igloo.
Okay, I'm pretty close to him then.
I'm gonna
Pretty
only
fucking close.
Armed Ape is now Stefan Molyneux in my head.
Boog, Big
I'm gonna
Igloo.
fish- you know,
Now
just
you
a
know why I
giant
gave up
egghead.
philosophy. Hey, listen,
All
you
right.
play the bass? Did you? You play the bass?
You play the
I
bass?
do, yes.
Fellow bass player. I knew I liked you. I saw the picture. I said, hey, that's a fucking bass. You left-handed?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm right-handed, but yeah. Fellow bass player, so solid.
Fellow
Yeah.
ANCAP, solid.
Right on.
All right. I will catch you guys in the next episode. We'll be back soon here. I'm gonna get everything organized and I'll put things out on my Twitter before stuff goes live, hopefully a few days beforehand this next time. My Twitter is at Liberty Layton. Armed Ape, give your Twitter real quick.
FM Universe 84.
And then
Otherwise known as
Kareem,
the
your Twitter.
FM Universe Armed Ape Takeover. So
Yeah. And then I think Kareem, you're at a weird at. What is your at? Your at is
Kareem 6633 on Twitter.
I found it. Yeah. Okay, I just got it too. All right. Yeah. So go follow those, and then I'll put up on my Twitter. And I'm sure everybody else will have it up on theirs. The show links and stuff before we put up the next episode, and we will do that hopefully soon here. I will catch you guys later. Peace.
Peace.